if you're making a choice between the mother's life and the baby's life, then, and you choose the mother's life, then you are leading towards the annihilation of the humankind.
Yes. And some people will say, okay, no, it's like your emotions, that they believe in this emotivism with regard to morals. So that moral convictions are just a matter of what kind of emotions are inside it when you talk about something. And I'm saying here, no, because if you put this to the logical end, we don't exist.
Right.
And so it's reason, it's practical issue.
Yes.
And in the long term, of course, but in a foreseeably long term, because if you just go long term, in a infinite long term, you just don't get nothing. But it's like...
Right, if it's only your life that you're thinking about from the time that you're young until you die, well, then what difference does it make? Hi.
Hello, Tammy.
Thank you very much for coming on my podcast.
Great pleasure.
We're at the Arc right now. This podcast should come out within the month, so it won't be that far away from the Arc. And I found you on the Arc app, which was a good way. I've been finding people, all kinds of people.
That's the purpose.
And I have just a couple of people that I can interview here. So you sent me a paper, and we're going to discuss it.
Cool.
So tell me a little bit about your background first.
So basically, I'm right now finishing PhD in law, in data protection law. I'm also practicing lawyer, but I'm practicing law because of like practical, let's say, considerations. I need money, but I'm always very passionate about public issues, politics, philosophy, also theory of law. And I thought that, okay, I'm making now money, focusing on my career, finishing PhD. It was also some kind of like intellectual fulfillment for me, writing PhD, but I want to go back. I just don't want to stray away from these public issues, which are passionate for me. Of course, I need to provide for my family. That's the first most important thing, but I just want to keep on writing and keep on doing what I'm passionate about, basically. And I was observing ARC for a long time, basically, since it was announced. I was thinking like, well, I would love to contribute somehow to it. And I would like to get in touch with you somehow. And I like, how should I do it? And I should write something, basically. I was reading the papers on the ARC's website, which were very, very inspiring. And I saw that there's like a lot of alignment between what I'm thinking about what I believe in. And there's, of course, huge inspiration and like a lot of inspirational authors, your husband as well. And I'm like, okay, I would like to do something good. So I'll just do my best, write something that I really feel strong about, which is at the crossroads of my interests. So I wrote this paper about the right to life. And here I am basically to like maybe give my contribution to this mission that we're having of writing a better story. And now I think the goal, I think we have better political wave right now, but now the art is to make it all happen, to get to this practical layer, because what your husband is doing is putting this meta-narrative that is giving us a strength, and that's amazing, that's great. And now we just need to go to this second layer of practical ideas, also theoretical ideas, but practical as well.
And action,
and actually go into certain political battles, because we may have a good wave globally, but there's still things that need to be fought for.
Right. And one of those is the abortion issue.
I mean, and that's the case, that perhaps we should not be talking about abortion.
Well, abortion is the end result.
I mean,
right?
We should name it abortion. Like,
what should we call it?
The right to life, basically. That's what we think about the life. What is life, basically? Whether it's like self-contained periods that we are like put it in this, let's say, cosmic order. We have, I don't know, 50, 70, 100 years in health or not, and that's the end, basically. Or we are like some kind of, we have some continuity of life, that I was born by my mother, I will give, my wife will give birth to my daughter, and it continues on, and I owe these people something, like these future people something, as much as, because this life was given to me, basically. So maybe we should think more about life as continuity, and that would also better align with what we know about life as such, from like evolutionary perspective as well. And that's why I don't like it. It's abortion from the perspective of current concepts and language, but I think it's more about life, what we think life is.
Yeah, well, I think abortion is an end result, and it's
Yes.
not, and it's negative. It's life annihilating, as you said.
Yes.
And so we have to go back and say, how might we conceive of ourselves and each other so that we don't go to this life annihilating end. And,
Yes.
And so
Yes.
one of the things that you talk to is you say the right to life as determinant of the legal system and the rights. So we're going to talk about the right to life as a singular, meta, and first norm. So this is really going back to basics about
Yes.
how we think of ourselves. So let's go back to that.
So basically, what I think is that it's obvious that, like, we are here, we acknowledge each other, that we are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that there's some meta assumption that we live, basically. And this is also kind of a source of this right to life, that other people are there, I am there, I have my life. And that's like at the basis of political system and community. We cooperate together, also pursuing our own ends. And this is just like, we see that we each have the right to life. That's very practical. And then we can, of course, go to this debate on like constitutional level, how governments protect it or communities protect this right to live. But the basic fact is that we have a right to life, basically. And what I'm telling about in this paper is that since like few decades, like 60s, 70s, Roe v. Wade, etc., like there's something very wrong about what we think when we think about the right to life. That we don't put this right at the very center of political system, legal system, or we put it, but then misinterpret it. And we subdue this right to some other considerations, like wrongly understood privacy, wrongly understood autonomy. So I think we need to go back to see this right to life as a basis of political community as such, that basically that my theory is that any political community exists to protect the life of people, basically, that we associate in this very, let's say, primordial political arrangements that, I don't know, we've been hunter-gatherers and we're protecting each other from like other groups and we are stronger, like to defend ourselves. So these are very rudimental political categories, according, for example, to Carl Schmitt, that we have like these friends and foes and we protect our life. So this is very, very visceral, very political. And then we have this right to life and we fast forward today, we are fairly safe, fairly abundant, and we don't need to, we still need to think about in these very primal categories. They are somewhere, but they are not so immediate right now, here and now. So we need to think about what we think about life as such. What does it mean this right to life is, basically. And my long story short, I'm just saying that we need to put this right to life and put another legal interpretation at the very, very center of our political, legal, and communal life, that we should not just relativize it. Because,
just since the 60s and the 70s, we've had a choice whether to have a baby or to not have a baby.
yes.
Before that, we had no choice, or we had no choice that was safe, because they've now made it a medical procedure. So then it's not going to impact the woman's life or her health anyway, her health at that moment. And that wasn't the case before there was good birth control. Something that's very interesting to me, and I just learned on the airplane over here, I was traveling with my husband on a plane with a man who owns a pharmaceutical company. So he is very astute in physiology and neurophysiology and biochemistry. And he said, Jordan often has an analogy, we are not in a zero-sum game as adults. We don't have to worry about the climate and all of that, because we are someone who can negotiate and make things move in a forward direction and solve problems.
We can work.
But he said that we're not in a Petri dish. And my friend said that yeast in a Petri dish, those little cells, when they start in our bodies and these ones in this Petri dish, not every cell is the same, because as one cell relates to the next cell, which is its community, which is its family, which is, however you want to say that, and then start to congregate. If something happens, say the temperature drops or something, and one of the cells figures out how to deal with that and survive, it will share its genetic material with the other cells.
Oh, that's not selfish gene.
That's not a selfish
That's
gene.
not a selfish gene.
No. And so it's not.
Yeah.
So it is a community already that is using each other or benefiting from each other and offering to each other to be alive.
Yeah. It's like emergence.
Isn't that interesting? So it happens right at the inception.
And how morphologically it goes afterwards. It's just...
Dependent on the adaptation that the cells can make to survive.
That's
So
life
whatever
already.
environment it's in. So yeah.
Yes.
So your story starts. I think you were saying that in here.
Maybe.
But you didn't know this fact.
No.
Yeah, but I think that's what you were saying, that we are dependent on each other,
Yes.
and that cells, like in biology, we are all dependent on each other. That's how we survive.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and that means that we by default recognize each other's life, basically.
Yeah, right.
And then arbitrary having weird definition of life that allows to just end this life for the sake of present life, because that's another thing I'm talking about.
Right, lifespan.
Lifespan
life
culture. So we have like a lifespan culture, which treats life as if it is like limited to what's, let's say, our qualia. So what we subjectively perceive throughout our lifespan.
Yeah.
And it treats kids and whatever experiences are there or other life as a kind of derivative of my happiness, kind of. The other people are important for me to the extent that they bring me joy and happiness. Mm-hmm. So like, it's me. It's all about me. And let's be realistic. Like, we all pursue our self-interest. We are in this like human body pile with these genes, more or less selfish. And there's like a limit to which we can just, be together. So like we have marriage, that's like the closest that someone can be with each other, basically. But we, as a matter of the fact, our, let's say, being in the world is individual humans. But still, we, in this weird liberalism, we went so far to say that it's just lifespan that matters. And then to hell with it. I will die and that's the end of me.
Cares? Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we should care. We should really care, because otherwise we won't be there for long. And like...
That will last maybe a few generations.
Yes.
Not caring, and then it's over.
Yes. And the other thing I'm just trying to state there is basically, well, you can tell that before, why we haven't been talking about it before. So like before, what I'm saying is that we didn't have much choice, as you said. Like the choice was like in 60s, 70s, the pill, basically. And only now we have this in some parts of the world. Luckily, we're in London, like this moderate material abundance that let us choice and not like have children just to, tile like work in the field basically and just throw money, because that was like life of 90%, over 95% of people like throughout history after like Neolithic revolution, just like survival basically.
Yeah,
having
survival.
children to like work on the fields, and then they were providing you when you're old. And then like we have this late industrial revolution, let's say 50s, 60s, let's call it like this. Now we have like this post-industrial era, and we're also like more about our evolution, what is life, the biology, what you just said. And this is basically the unique time in the human history that we can basically think about ourselves in terms of like evolutionary self-consciousness. So where do we want our species to go? What is life? Where we are going? Will I last after I die, basically? And that's something I'm concerned about. And it's not that I have like, some panacea or some solution for this, but maybe we should start to talk about these things, basically. And I'm thinking then about like practical legal terms, because I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
That we have rights discourse. Like, so if you have rights discourse, which is an achievement in itself, we should not just dispose human rights and fundamental rights. We should keep with it, but interpret it in a different way. So for example, it's that like privacy and autonomy is wrongly interpreted right now. That's basically my argument is like, and that's a common argument again for pro-life, that the choice is when you go to sleep with someone, yes? Mm-hmm. And of course, I just don't want to be like this white guy lecturing women what they should be doing. But as a matter of the fact, that's when you choose whether to probably have children or not. Of course, you need to connect this discussion with like what duties men have or like what duties community have. It's not separable, of course, but that's a whole another topic.
Yeah, well, that would be, no sex before marriage. That would have been the religious doctrine that was set down for the community of each church that was in each town. It's like you were abiding by this religion and this
People
religion
were younger. People were much younger.
Yeah, my mom and dad, I think, were married and had their first child at 21.
Yeah, much younger. So like you can, I don't know, let's say that you're 16, 17 and you feel this urge, you can wait 3-4 years. But like now people are 25, 6, 7, 30.
Oh, 30, 40?
Yes.
My husband had a woman come to him last week and said, I'm 42. I want to get married and have kids.
Yeah.
42 years old.
Yeah.
And so, we're from feminism, we've learned this narrative that career was most important.
Yeah.
And that has, and you could put aside your private relationship with and find a husband and get married, fall in love and get married until later in your life. And, that's okay for men because it doesn't matter when men get married. They can have children, but women...
Men are abusing it.
Well, women have to insist. Women, and we don't insist. I know that I was not
because
great at
year by year we
insisting.
have less leverage.
I think if we insist that we have... If you don't insist, then you have no agency.
Yes, of course.
Right. And so really it's up to women. Like everybody has to do their part. Everybody.
Yeah. What I'm just up to is that a lot of men, and I see my
Right.
friends,
You can talk about
they're
men, I can
just
talk about
they're just abusing their position basically. Because like when you're like 20 something, you're quite like on this, let's say, sexual market. I hate this concept, but anyway,
Yeah.
but you're 20s, you're miserable. Like all the girls are looking to these older guys.
Yes.
And then you're 30s, and it turns out that wow, I'm stronger right now. And they have these girlfriends with whom they are like for 5-6 years, and they're not proposing because they want to keep their options open, basically.
Yeah, right,
so
right.
basically, I'm telling like today with our current knowledge about this like biological windows, like I really don't believe that you love women if you're not taking into consideration her biological interests.
Right.
Let's say it like this, because they have less time. And that's it. And I see like out of 10 of my friends, 2, 3 are married. Most of them have girlfriends, like 8, 9 like girlfriends. Then out of it, this like 2 have married, 1, 2 maybe children. And they're 30 something. I'm 30 years old right now.
Yeah. My son is 32. He's married. He's having his 3rd child within the week.
That's great. Congratulations.
He has one other friend. They have a child, they're going to have another, and all the other friend group, and this is within the town. He grew up, so he knows lots of people there. None of them are married. None of them are having kids.
And here we go back to this, where we have like global demographic catastrophe. We
do.
And that's, we talk about this big moral issues, like, ideals. And people will say, that have nothing to do with practical life. It does, because just right now, slowly, our financial system will start to like collapse. More money printing, more taxes, less freedom.
With fewer workers.
Yeah, because we need to provide for older people, which are just retiring, boomer generation.
Yeah.
And you see like demographic pyramid, and like it's even too late right now to have a lot of children. But like we need to do anything about this. And now like go pay for these older people. And also, for example, in Europe, people are so entitled, and you have these huge bureaucracies collecting taxes and paying this money to older people, and they expect this money because that was the social contract, but there was not enough children to provide for this, because in the first place, the deal was that there's enough children to provide for these older people. And we have huge problem right now.
And so what do you think should change?
I have no idea whatsoever right now what should be changed to solve this practical financial problem.
Well, I wonder, I think you have to change the mindset of the people.
That's what I wanted to tell. Like, first step is just to start to talk about it, basically.
Yeah.
And start to say that children are great, that having children is amazing, that's cool. And like being mother is cool. And like that's, if you're a mother, you're a hero. You're great. You're amazing. You don't need to like climb this corporate ladder to be like, to have like this recognition, social recognition. No, if you're a mom, you're great. You're amazing. And that's amazing that you actually resigned from your career, that you sacrificed this. But then you should be expecting something from your husband. Like,
yes.
And that's hard because that's also like how much he can make on the market. It's very, very complex. Of course, we'll not cover it all here because that's like books could be written about it, but we can just skim through it and just put some agenda perhaps.
Well, we have to be able to speak to each other, husbands and wives.
Yes.
We have to be able to speak to each other and tell each other what is in our hearts. Not what we think might be a good plan, but what is deep in our hearts. And I think that women have been steered away from expressing what's in their hearts. And what's in their hearts, I know when I was a child, I wanted to have a baby.
But
I knew that. And now people say, no, I don't want to have a baby. But you know what they say after that? My parents are getting a divorce. And I say, well, that's too bad for your parents, but that's not your life. Your life.
Yeah.
How old are you? She's 28. Yeah. Well, it's time to find a husband and get married.
My experience is that, I'm sorry to say that, but a lot of men are just not reliable, and women would rather not open themselves because they're even more vulnerable. And for example, there's someone with someone for 5-6 years, he hadn't proposed. So they need to work. They need to pursue this career just as a backup plan. I mean, of course, I don't know how women, by the way, that's like women stuff, how we can deal with someone with whom we are not satisfied. But like, it's like security issue. I don't know, like I'm a man, so I'm like.
Well, I think,
but they're still with these guys.
We do a lot of negotiation.
Yeah.
We do a lot of negotiation. And he used to buy me sexy things to wear that I didn't like. I taught him what I didn't like, and I taught him what I did like. Yeah. And so it's really up to the husband and wife to speak to one another truthfully and not be.
But that's the next level. When you have this reliability that you know each other.
So we're finding a husband.
Just step before, basically.
We've been telling men that all their striving is not good. All of everything that they aspire to as men is now we're told that that striving is not helpful. So, like, what are men supposed to do? They are trying to do what they do naturally, which is to go out and have an adventure, to overcome something that is difficult and win a goal. That's what they're good at. That's why we like sports, because there's goal involved and there's the pursuit of the goal, and that's what men are like, and that's why men's sports are so interesting to watch, is because we like to watch that. With this idea of mirror neurons, when you have mirror neurons in your head, and when you see a sport and you see the guy score, you can feel that in your body, that feeling, that rush. And that's why you watch movies too, because then you can empathize with the person and stuff. Because
mimicry.
These neurons that allows you to feel the adventure, to feel the tragedy and everything. And so we have given men a story of being not useful, and we've given women the story of you could do anything, you can be anything in the career world, and you can support yourself, and you don't need any help. And all of this has created a dystopia between the sexes.
Yeah, and this whole low testosterone culture. But
yeah, and I don't know exactly what that is, and we have to figure that out, because some people think it's microplastics, but
no, it's just something here that you're not like encouraged to like do like great stuff.
Not encouraged.
Great stuff.
So how did you overcome that?
I think I had a great father. Yeah. He's very inspiring. Just very working hard, and he just did an amazing things. From where he started, he was just like in a little village in the 60s in Poland, where they didn't have like electricity back in the 60s, like having his own company, house, great, like family, great inspiration for me, and just learning, teaching me, reading a lot of books to me, and just telling me what's right and wrong, basically, because he said that that's right and wrong, and giving me a lot of acceptance. That's fantastic. And then, of course, like faith, basically, like that I just had some kind of spiritual awakening when I was 19 years old, let's say.
Had you been going to church before that?
Yeah, but more like in a routine way.
Yeah.
Kind of like...
What happened when you were 19?
So basically I had this like existential crisis, what everything is for, what's the purpose of everything, where I'm going. Yeah. I was like, of course, related somehow to some, let's say, early adolescence love with girls and stuff. So it was like mixed. Plus I had some family crisis, like with my sister and my parents divorced before. So I was a mess, partying a lot, drinking a lot of booze. And I was just, had this friend who was just very deeply believing. And we went for a retreat near Warsaw to, like Salesians. I don't know, like how it's in English, like some Salesians basically.
I'm going to go visit there.
Yeah, they have like a great monastery near like in Czerwinsk in Poland, like first church in the Mazovian region in Poland from 12th century, like amazing cathedral. I was married there afterwards. Oh, wow. So I went there for a retreat and I was there like 2-3 times. First time I just was reading, I read like Dostoevsky's Idiot, which just like Dostoevsky just crushes you and then he reinvents you again. That's what he does. And like Idiot was for me, like it was a sheer terror just going through it, like reading there in this monastery and like, wow, what's happening? And there's that demonic woman in Dostoevsky. It's just like...
Right, yeah, the old woman.
No, this like this Prince Mishkin's woman, he was pursuing her basically.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to like, he wanted her to be for her salvation. And the second thing, same monastery I just went for like 21, just went to confess, like in a really conscious way. Yes. And it was not like that's like going to the priest and just talking, oh, I did this. No, we get the walk. We were talking for an hour with one monk. He's great. We're still friends. And he's just a great guy, very inspiring. I just made a list of my sins and we had just a great talk for an hour. And he just talked with me about these things. And just, it was kind of like a spiritual guidance, basically. And then like there's like a slow process of getting better and better. And I'm still in this process because like there's a lot of...
Well, it's a life of...
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's like being better and better. And I hope at some point now try to give more and more. Yes. Because I gained a lot. I'm very blessed. And also that's why I'm here and happy to talk with you.
Oh, sure. So let's talk more about... You have right to life as inherent and any polity. So you're talking about, and right in the Western legal tradition. So rights, talking a lot about rights and the necessity to realize where those rights come from and what it means to have a right.
So basically, the rights are based on human dignity, the notion of human dignity. And there's like can talk about a lot of theories of dignity, but more or less, whether you believe in God or not, from the tradition, it's just like imago Dei, basically, so that we are created in the the picture of God, basically.
Yes.
And that's basically the source of these rights, basically. And there's a lot of conservatives have like reservations about the rights discourse, but I don't think that we can dispense with it. We have right now human rights and fundamental rights discourse, which is a way of interpreting law in the Western legal orders that we have, for example, constitutional judges, either whether it's Supreme Court in the US or Court of Justice of the European Union or like other constitutional tribunals in Poland, other like European countries, they are talking about rights. Like when they interpret law, they're talking from the perspective of right, freedom of speech, privacy, autonomy, dignity, freedom to conduct a business, and all other rights. And what these judges are doing is like weighting the rights against each other. So for example, here and now, we have this factual situation, and we translate this factual situation into the language of law. Let's say that something wrong happened somewhere, like downstairs. And then the judge says, okay, this guy had the right to do this, and this guy had the right to do that. And how do we weigh this? What was proper? And this is like everyday situation, but at the constitutional level, it's more like, okay, we need a new law. And Parliament passed a new law, and then constitutional judges are saying this is legal or illegal. So in the case of Roe v. Wade, they said that women have right to privacy, and that's the private business, what's happening in their body, basically. So they basically, what they did is they said the right to life is less important than the women's privacy, and this is the balance they strike with this legal argumentation. So what a lot of people don't know, and of course a lot of my legal friends will don't like it, but the very end where you apply law, there's a decision. There's a decision which needs to be transparent and well argued because you apply legal norms, but there's the decision and moral judgment at some point, especially in the context of constitutional issues, because there's just not enough. There's a limit to what language can describe, basically. You have these abstract norms. Don't kill, don't do this, don't do that. But then in a certain situation, there's a lot of other considerations. So there's finally a decision that you need to put into legal language, legal interpretation. But at the end, it's motivated by the moral considerations, of course. And that's where we are, where we have right or wrong legal decisions, basically. And I'm saying that the way we treat right to life right now is not only immoral, but also self-defeating. Because if we keep on allowing for terminating the life, we won't be here. This is the basic precondition for existence, that we protect life. It's possible that in few generations, this kind of podcasts will not exist because simply there will be not enough people.
Right.
So the very existence of us is premised on this protection of life. So that's why it's wrong. It's not only moral issues. It's an issue of practical reasonableness. That at the end of the day, if you dig deeper, and if you interpret the right to life in a different way, it leads to self-annihilation. Yes. So it's wrong.
Right.
That's why it's wrong and evil, because it leads to non-existence, basically.
Right. So if you're making a choice between the mother's life and the baby's life, and you choose the mother's life, then you are leading towards the annihilation of the humankind.
Yes. And some people will say, okay, no, it's your emotions, they believe in this emotivism with regard to morals. So that moral convictions are just a matter of what kind of emotions are inside it when you talk about something. And I'm saying here, no, because if you put this to the logical end, we don't exist.
Right.
And so it's reason, it's practical issue.
Yes.
In the long term, of course, but in a foreseeably long term, because if you just go long term, in an infinite long term, you just don't get nothing. But it's
right. If it's only your life that you're thinking about from the time that you're young until you die, well, then what difference does it make?
But if you only believe in your lifespan, why shouldn't you not kill people? Right. If it gives you a joy.
Right.
Why?
Right.
So it's you can reasonably argue for this, let's say, limitations, basically. I'm not talking about legislating just everything right now, but if you just think deep enough on what our political system and life in general is premised, it's premised on protection of life. We live, we exist. So we need to keep this life going.
And take it not just to what we are used to having in our lives, which are babies and our elderly parents and our siblings, but also these babies that are inside of us. So you have to include those.
And that's the definition of life, and any other definition of life other than the moment of conception, of this merging these two cells, is totally arbitrary and very consequential in terms of what can be done further. Because if we have another definition than this moment of conception, then we assign humanity based on certain features. So if someone is enough or not enough developed. So the logical consequence is that later we can deny humanity to a lot of people.
Yes.
For example, to gingers. Because why not? Because we define humanity as only blonde people and black-haired people. Or we can say, okay, elder people, because they're losing their cognitive abilities, they're no longer humans. Just as people inside the belly, they're not yet humans because they don't have enough let's say, cognitive ability. They don't have these experiences. So like older people, they also like losing their experience. So we should maybe terminate them for the sake of practicality.
Yeah. Well,
So
we have very strong medically assisted dying policies in Canada. I'm Canadian.
I heard about it.
And I think something now, it's the 5th leading cause of death in Canada now.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And they're going to start using it for people who are depressed.
Jesus.
Even though if you only eat meat, your depression lifts.
Jesus.
That's all you have to do.
My sister right now is like,
Just get her to eat
depression
meat,
and like...
it'll lift for her, but it'll take a few months.
But that's scary because... Well, can you repeat?
If she just eats a carnivore diet...
No, she's eating terribly, like vegan stuff.
See?
And I think that's
the problem.
But that's like ideological.
If plants could run away, if they had legs, they would run away.
Yes.
They don't have legs, so they have poisons in them.
I'm experimenting with carnivore right now, and I feel great.
Yeah, so your sister can take your what your experience now, and maybe and then you can inspire her.
Yeah.
Because really, we didn't know that it would. When we took on this diet, it was because my daughter had arthritis. Very
heard the story.
And so, but we didn't know the depression would lift. We had no idea, but it lifted.
Yeah.
And now a man named Chris Palmer, Dr. Chris Palmer, at Harvard at McLean Hospital, is using a carnivore diet to treat major depression and schizophrenia. And he lifted schizophrenia from a woman who'd been schizophrenic for 73 years.
Wow.
And now she has no medication and she's better and stable. Isn't that something?
No, it's huge.
Well, he talked to another person, a biologist, that's another aside, but he just told me this. He talked to a biologist who told him that when we were hunter-gatherers, we ate meat. That's what we ate. And now and then we'd find a bush of berries, and we would eat all the berries. Yeah. All the berries from the tree.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'd find some berries again in another week or another month or something.
Just like huge sugar spike.
And so we have that in our system to, when we find carbohydrates, to eat them all.
Yeah.
We have that in our biology. And so now when there's carbohydrates everywhere in the store and whole center of the grocery stores, and they're in our fridges, then we go for that all the time because, so it's almost impossible for people to not choose carbohydrates.
No, and they tell you that they are great, that they are needed for energy.
Right. And now they put, the food pyramid, they put 8 to 10 servings of grain, but that was the Department of Agriculture, not the Department of Health, that decided that we should be eating carbohydrates.
Mentally tough only to eat animal stuff. It's a lot of discipline.
I think once you only eat meat, you don't crave carbohydrates anymore.
I learned that I discriminate more right now with regard to food because I just feel that some has this MSG and stuff. When I started to eat more clean, I feel I'm more, let's say, conscious as to what's happening with my body.
And I think a lot of what people are doing and making the decisions they're making, they're mixed up. They're mixed up. They've lost their faith, I think. They've lost their faith. They're eating this diet that's making their brain fuzzy.
Stupid.
Yeah, making them stupid.
Really?
Yeah, that's right.
You cannot focus that well.
No, you can't focus that well. And
for a long time.
I feel now that I'm outside it. I say once you stop eating plants, then you're outside the matrix and you can see what's going on. I
haven't had breakfast today. Just 3 eggs, raw eggs after workout.
Yeah.
And I'm fine. I mean, I'm a bit hungry, but because I'm on this ketosis, I don't feel, down. I feel okay.
Well, the doctors, they test your glucose levels.
Yeah.
They don't test your insulin levels. As you age and you're eating lots of carbohydrates, your insulin levels start to go up, but they can't make medications to fight that.
Yeah.
They can bring your glucose levels down with insulin, but they don't know what to do when the insulin levels keep climbing. But they do keep climbing if you keep eating carbohydrates, and then that's what causes heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, and all the other things that you have. And there's no marketing, they don't have any business plan for testing insulin levels, only glucose levels. So that's what we get tested all the time, and all that tells us is what our insulin levels are so that they can lower them. But they don't over time. And they even, when you're young, they say you can have an insulin or a glucose level of this much. But when you're older, well, you can have a higher level. It's not true. If you had that when you were 20, that much sugar in your blood at 20, they would say you were diabetic. So They're
what's the bigger
building-
issue? That people don't train. And why they don't train? They're not motivated to train. They don't, because they that's another topic.
You mean exercise?
Yeah, it's exercise.
Yeah,
They don't-
but you know
they don't
what's-
really believe that, like, it makes sense.
I think there's more to it than that. I think that because I've always been able to exercise. I've had no problem. And I also have a gene that makes me feel good when I exercise. Not everybody has that gene. Some people exercise and they don't get that rush.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. What a drag, huh?
I love exercise.
But that's why you exercise with other people then, because you can have the camaraderie and that'll motivate you.
Okay.
But, when people are depressed, they can't go out and exercise. It's not that they don't want to.
Okay.
They actually can't bring themselves to do it.
To do anything. So that's why you want to start with the food.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll try to convince
Okay.
her. I'll do
Okay,
it.
yeah, try to convince her. How old is she?
28.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then she'll have a wonderful life. I could show you a picture of a woman named Maggie from Canada who is 82. She's been a carnivore for 65 years. She still has hair, your color of hair.
Wow.
She works as a rancher still at 82.
Great.
She's working like everyone else on the ranch.
Great.
And she has, you look at her, you think she would be 40, 40 years old. So this is I've been on a carnivore diet for 8 years.
Yeah.
My skin is better.
Do you have cheat meals? Like you just eat this, or like, because sometimes I'm giving
and
up
water.
and doing like cheat meals. Like I'll
yeah.
go for burger or something.
I don't really, but burgers, you can eat whatever you want. I started eating bacon and eggs with my steak now. So I have a very restricted diet.
Yeah.
You can have carnivore, as long as it's an animal product.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll eat pork puffs. Pork puffs.
So no carbs, zero.
No carbs.
Zero.
No
Okay.
carbs. No carbs. Actually, as soon as you start eating carbs, you'll crave them again. Because your body will say,
Yeah.
there's got to be another tree here with berries. Let's find it.
Yeah, and they're like, then you're down and stuff.
Yeah.
That's true.
But if you think of the hunter-gatherer thing, it really makes sense. People used to eat meat. And when they found something to eat that was in the ground, they ate it all.
A lot of people will argue that it's not sustainable. I don't know the economics part of all of it.
Maybe, how many farmers are there now? Because they've dissuaded all the farmers from farming.
Maybe we need more farmers.
Yeah, we need people to...
More farmers.
Yeah, and we need our animal husbandry to be an important part of our society, not a dwindling part.
I have a prestige in agriculture. That's great. Like agriculture is great.
Yes,
and there's not enough prestige aside.
No, there is not. Like being a mother. There's no prestige to be a mother.
Yeah, someone's feeding these people. Someone's feeding us, basically.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of like cultural priorities who we put on the top, basically.
Yeah.
So mothers like
and
farmers.
Farmers up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Not like just some like corporate people like doing this.
Yeah. No, the narrative is wrong. So
I agree.
That's what we're doing here this weekend, right? Is we're trying to change the narrative, and then if we
Against huge corporate power system, this alliance of big corporate power with woke left liberal establishment, basically.
Yes.
It's very tough.
It is very tough. It is very tough. But I think I'm seeing, with the Trump administration coming in now, and with them looking at the health industry in the States, they're at least, and balancing the budget, going in there and marking off everything that was
waste.
NGOs and waste. They balanced the budget in no time flat. How much waste? And Canada's the same.
I don't know the digits. I hope they will to some extent, but
No, they are.
Yeah, money printing, that's the issue.
That money printing is the issue.
That's the issue.
That we used to have a gold standard. They changed that in
70s.
Right, in the 70s.
They started to change it during the First World War.
Ever since, right?
Which you don't see because you look on the consumer price index and you don't see like inflation in housing and like things which are like valuable. So people think that inflation is low, but it's not, it's super high, it's extremely high. But I have a problem with this because basically we have a system predicated on money printing and there's like more and more money printing. And from democratic perspective, it's really hard to change it because you have this huge constituency of people, in your age, which needs to be paid because they can no longer work and they can only be paid by printing more money and taxing productive people. So it's a huge, huge political bump
Yeah.
which I don't know what to do about, but it exists, and it's driving a lot of countries to bankruptcy. And even if you have more conservative policies, it's not that you can just bring back, I don't know, the gold standard all of the sudden or something like this. And it's like now has huge international ramifications, also for US as a global empire, because now they're withdrawing from Europe to more and more extent, leaving countries like Poland, hopefully not, but to just, wrap themselves up and to get their economy more healthy, balancing the budget, cutting off the costs, basically. But, I drifted away anyway. But this thing with money printing, it's just it's so interdimensional, impacting our business, also our food, because bad quality food is also this fiat food based on printed money, not like...
I started making all the carbohydrates that are, like potato chips and all the things that we see in all the stores when the cigarette companies started losing money because people weren't buying cigarettes, they shifted to the food companies, and they bought the food companies, and they started creating ultra-processed carbohydrates and making lots of money that way. And that's when people started thinking, oh, well, maybe I don't need a dining room table at home. I can just eat on the way.
That's where EU is superior, because we have very high food standards. We really have better quality food.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the States, that's what it's like. And in Canada, that's what it's like.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So it's not like that in Europe.
No, we have very high quality food standard. That's also a protective measure to block the imports of foods from other countries, from Africa, basically, and to have let's say food self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
So it's like security issue. Like in EU, we have single market but we defend ourselves from importing food from somewhere else. So we want to keep our agriculture going, and food is just subsidized all over the place. And we said, okay, this is where free market is not working, because we want to eat our own food, our own good quality food. And that's where free market is not working, because that's also the matter of our sovereignty, basically. So politicians in the US will complain, no, but you're not letting our food to be for example, genetically modified food to be exported.
Yeah,
and I have nothing against GMO. I'm not also an expert about it.
Yes,
but as a matter of the fact, we subsidize, and in Switzerland, I'm living in Switzerland, they also subsidize the farmers, basically, to have them exist and feed the populations, basically, to be independent. Yeah.
And what about, in Hungary, they, a woman who's married who has a child pays 25% less income tax.
Yeah.
And if she has 4 kids, she doesn't pay income tax for the rest of her life.
That's great.
And that's in Hungary. Is that in any other part of Europe?
I think we have, I don't have precise knowledge about other countries, but in Europe in general, you have this safety net, this welfare state. France, Germany, you have this.
Thing, though, that's very difficult for women, because they feel, because they're not, society doesn't think that motherhood is valuable. If they were saving...
I'll show you another side of this.
Okay.
I talk with people from Denmark, guys from Denmark, 40-something. They say that women in Denmark and in Scandinavian countries are divorcing men en masse because they don't need them, because they'll get money from the state.
Right, but they have to be married to get that money in Hungary.
Okay, that's interesting. Didn't know. I know that in Scandinavia, just that men feel that they're useless because women will just have money from the state, but they have this 70% tax rate.
If the government is supporting the old people and the women, then what are men for?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
What we are for.
Right.
So that's another part of the story, basically.
Yeah.
I heard about this Hungarian pro-family policy. I like them. I don't like that Hungary is semi-authoritarian country right now, from our perspective. That it's... I don't know
if that's true, though. I've been there.
I think that's true.
That way to me.
I mean, it doesn't look because why would you see it? With all due respect, you don't live there. It's I was in China. I was living in China for 2 years. I haven't
didn't see it.
anything wrong, but I knew that something is going on there, basically.
Yeah.
So the state is captured basically by Orban's oligarchy, and they are doing a lot of nice and good things in terms of conservative policies. But in terms of how country is governed, it's not like democracy in Canada, in the US. Now in Poland, we have a lot of problems. We have huge institutional mess, but still we are democracy. Germany is democracy. But Hungary, it's a lot of...
The other thing that they're doing? They have immigrants just like everybody
Yes.
does in all of their...
Yes.
And what they do is when they find somebody that they think is best sent back to their own country, they send an envoy of Hungarians to that country to try to help with the infrastructure there and find out why people are leaving. And so I think we all have to do that.
Well, I would be much more radical. I would send like European or like Italian troops on the shores of Lebanon and all other, Libya, all other countries, and just like do like more hard power stuff to choke off like this smuggling and like these warlords. But that's something totally beyond
we have to
our
also
psyche.
look at why that is what's happening in
Are we
country.
responsible for this?
I think that if they're in our country and we have to take them out, then and we've let them in and then take them out, we might be
that's
responsible.
small
if
scale.
we had not brought them in, maybe we would
But
be
not
responsible.
in Germany, have millions of them. Like
Yes.
it's impossible to do it on mass scale. It's impossible. Maybe in Hungary have like 50, 60, 100,000 people because they are not going to Hungary. They're going to Germany through Hungary, for example.
I see.
So
you
I
don't
think that
they have very many
I think
migrants?
maybe that's nice, but not scalable. Basically, just one point. Like conservatives in like U.S., Canada, they like Hungary as like an exemplary country, which I'm skeptical about because of this institutional capture. That's what they did.
Yeah.
So maybe they're conservative, like ideologically, but at the level of, let's say, constitution, this is nothing like democracy. And they're like letting in Chinese influence, Russian influence. So for us, from my, let's say, Polish perspective, but if I think seriously about the European Union, that's not okay. But that's whole another topic.
Yes, right.
But like maybe we can a lot of learn in terms of like family policy from them, of course.
Yeah, there's some good family policy. And the past president is here at ARC.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, you saw her?
And I heard that she'll be here.
Yeah, she's here. I sat beside her at dinner last night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, and she has an NGO now on family, on birthing.
Great.
On children.
No, I heard that they had
And she started the family policy. So
that's amazing.
it was her policy.
No, something to really learn from. of
Yeah,
course.
so maybe we'll learn some more from her
Sure.
in terms of helping women make a choice towards marriage and family. And it has to be marriage and family, because really people, we ask what a woman is. You know what a woman is? A woman is a woman is a girl with a child. That's a woman.
Yeah. I mean, I feel.
When a woman looks at a man, she thinks father.
Yeah.
That's what she thinks. And when a man looks at a woman, I don't know what he thinks, but I know that when I looked at men, I thought, father, will he be a good father?
I feel different after having 7 months baby.
Yeah.
It's a different life.
Yeah.
It was not like different, like not shock change, because it's interesting evolutionary that you have enough time to like change yourself, to accommodate 9 months.
Right.
So and it's not that people think, oh, it will be a shock. No, 9 months, it's really a lot to just learn and to like transition yourself.
Yeah.
And then the child is born, and of course they need a lot of care and attention, but they're not very complicated. Like you need to feed them and to give them a lot of warmth. So it's a continuous process. Mm-hmm. And that's another fault of this contemporary narrative that all my life will change so much. No, you'll have enough time to just get used to it.
Yes,
and that's fine, and that's great. And it's not like, boom. That's not.
No.
That's false.
And plus, I don't think there's any other way. I remember when I had my first baby, she was maybe 8 months old, and we took her home to see my husband's parents. We were at the lake. There were an aunt and uncle and grandparents there. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, isn't this nice? Everyone here is paying attention to the baby.
Yeah.
Just all afternoon, that's all they did was she was bouncing in a bouncy thing, and all they wanted to be with her. And I thought, isn't that nice? It has nothing to do with...
It's rejuvenation. Baby brings rejuvenation. And
the attention was no longer...
I feel like a baby sometimes right now when I look at her. I play with her in like this while doing stupid stuff with her, basically. And I enjoy it a lot. And I see my father friends, they're doing like going to the parties or like self-fulfillment trips to like some other African country for whatever reason, not having a baby, just wasting money. They'll hate me up for saying this, but I think it's true. And I feel like great with her. I feel much younger. I feel rejuvenated, and she's bringing a new hope to all of us, basically. And that's beautiful. And sorry to criticize, but that's like the world I live in, my friends, and they're going like just exploiting themselves with these new experiences like drugs, cocaine, alcohol.
Yeah.
If they don't marry, they just dump their girlfriends and like looking for something new, like
Leading a hedonistic life.
and just being circling around themselves, not really progressing.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to convince them, because also like in Catholic Church, they tell that you just give like testimony and like do your best living your great life. But when we're talking here and someone will be watching it, why should they not know?
Right.
Like how great it is to have children.
Yeah, live by example.
Yes. And it's not like hypocritical posing yourself as like someone to emulate. No, but as a matter of fact, we need children, and it's just good to share that it's amazing. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, and my son, who has these little kids, his friends come over for dinner, and all they do is play with the kids.
Yeah. Because they're fun.
Yeah.
They're funny. They're so simple and helpless. And
I think I think those other people will get married and have children, because they are very close friends. And I think, and through example, you do learn.
Yes.
Well, it's all about, you talk about mimicry.
Yes.
So you talk about that as being...
I was talking about mimicry in the context of the fact that it is only now that we can have this choice, basically, about the right to life. Because before, as we talked, it was just like children were, let's say, natural economic necessity, and people were not that much aware how to like. They were aware. They were like, there was like ways to prevent the pregnancy, but still, it was a matter of practical thing to have children to like plow the fields, basically, or take care of all elder people when they are very old. And now we had like pills in 60s and 70s, and it's only now when we can have like a real, basically, choice about whether to have children or not, and what's our attitude toward life, toward existence, basically, because having children is not like immediate economic necessity.
No, it's
basically.
very long term.
Yes. So basically, like when we have these conversations and we have this mimicry, we have to have more conversations of this, because then people realize how great it is. I hope that they will basically follow. And about mimicry, I'm making their like a detour towards Christianity, about like singularity of Jesus Christ as a personage, which like let us, let's say, confess our sins and then make our sins being forgiven, basically, and how this was a huge cultural revolution, basically, and I link it then to this right to life narrative, basically. But for the sake of this conversation, I don't think that this is so critical. Like if someone will be interested, I hopefully will publish it at some point, somewhere. Maybe they can take a look, basically. But I'm talking about Christ as a kind of like inflection point in human history, that he lets us be good or evil, basically. Because like what I posed there is that it's really hard to confess your sins unless you know that you can be forgiven, basically. And that's what the Christ brought. And I'm talking about René Girard, his theory of culture, of mimetic competition, that people like go into this vicious cycle of competition, and they used to resolve these conflicts by this scapegoat mechanism, basically. So it's kind of like we take some scapegoat and we externalize evil to this scapegoat by killing it. Right. It used to be humans in some very long time ago. Then it was like animals. And then we have Jesus Christ, who was like literal scapegoat and sacrificed himself, like ending this mimetic rivalry. And that's like René Girard theory. And from this moment, we can actually say that, okay, I sinned, I confess my sins, and it's not that we externalize this evil towards others, but we find evil in ourselves. And that's just a gospel. That's like one of the most important things in gospels, except of this demand for love to other people. And I do my best to make this whole narrative supporting having children and thinking about life from conception, then farther even after our death. So we have life culture instead of lifespan culture. That it's worth to think about life as something beyond me.
Yes, that's right. And I think it really only comes to bear significance to us when we go through a tragedy, when we go through suffering, because we don't look for God's help. We don't really get on our knees until we're suffering.
True.
And so our societies are suffering but we'll have to see how
I don't think people see
much
that
they
they are.
have to suffer before they
I don't-
come back to God.
A lot of people don't see that there's a trouble here, basically. They're satisfied with this short-term consuming of stuff and these incremental self-realization gains, but
They're
not
not
necessarily
old yet.
having the idea where it goes, basically.
When they're old, they'll realize it because they'll be alone. They won't have any children to
It's a
come visit
tragedy.
them.
It's a tragedy. And that's why it's false culture.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's evil and false culture because it does not lead neither to happiness and self-fulfillment at the end, nor to like life, extended life, basically beyond you.
Right.
And what great people did in history, they were like building great stuff so they will be remembered.
And not in their lifetime. They
Not
would
in their
build
life.
things that wouldn't even be finished. in
Yeah,
their
the
lifetime.
cathedrals.
Yeah.
Cathedrals.
That's right.
And yeah, they were built for like 100, 200 years often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything that we take as important that is beyond our own lifespan.
Yes, and that's bad. That's very bad.
Yeah, right. It's
Very bad. And what I'm telling also is that why having children is so important if you want to commit to right culture, because then you have vested stake in this future.
Yeah.
Because that's your children.
Yeah.
And like as much as we can tell about this, let's say, abstract idea and encourage people to do good things, not being hypocritical is like you need to have like some vested stake in this future, basically. And that's your children.
Mm-hmm.
That's your genes.
Right.
And like, that's your interest, of course.
Yeah.
And that's how
And that's
it
what
all
it's
aligns
meaning.
with love.
Yeah.
So it's not opposite. It's like enlightened, very enlightened self-interest, let's say.
Yeah. That's a good place to stop.
Thank you.